kind of working through that process, we kind of pick different clinical interventions, just depending on where clients are at for substance use or as far as coming out. So for substance use, we might use motivational enhancement therapy to work with folks as they're kind of on the front end in that pre-contemplation stage, not really seeing drug use as a problem. And then, once we've built up a little motivation, switching over to cognitive behavioral therapy to really start, kind of exploring triggers, how we think about substances, those positive and negative consequences. And then two, Ehrman here and Snap et al. Describe family therapy as being a really important component of working with LGBTQ plus youth and substance use. And Snap and colleagues found that family support is one of the strongest predictors of positive outcomes for these folks. So, and this slide here, I've added this one, so you all don't have it in the handout that was passed, and I can get it to you later if we want. But in that note of kind of working with caregivers around LGBTQ youth and the coming out process, this was a study done by Trussell, and he kind of identified 3 different stages that caregivers kind of go through in a child's coming out process. So the first is an emotional response where maybe there's this sense of grief or maybe even anger, and then moving into kind of a cognitive behavioral where they're thinking through a little bit more just about the practicalities of what this identity might mean for their child. And then finally moving into kind of a more spiritual and moral phase where they're understanding and kind of confronting how that identity might conflict with some of their previously held religious or spiritual beliefs, if there is some conflict there. And O'Neill and Fellinger here in their article describe in pretty depth some helpful ways that motivational interviewing can also be used with caregivers in each of those stages. And so we also want to consider, like, we're going to be working with caregivers throughout this process too. And so making sure that we have the skills and knowledge equipped to teach them about the needs of their child and things like that, be it respect to pronouns or challenges that they may face, ways that they can support, but really working to involve the caregiver once we kind of get the client's buy-in for that. And so, like we mentioned, later adjustment is predicted most by family acceptance, but also by percentage of friends who know about LGBTQ plus identity, as well as receiving support related to identity from other friends. And Snap and colleagues in this study also found that it wasn't necessarily particularly helpful for LGBTQ plus people to have another friend who identified in that same group. And so again, this kind of goes back to, it's really the community context, and we can't have folks who might not know other LGBTQ plus people, but still find support from their local communities. So throughout the focus of treatment, we really want to drive home that healthy relationships are being beneficial in both kind of creating resiliency with these LGBTQ plus identities, but also in helping promote substance use prevention. So really, as we're focusing on our treatment, we really want to take kind of a relationship and more kind of community-based aspect here. And the next thing here that I think is particularly interesting is, as we're all in a time of COVID and having a conference from distance and those sorts of things, the telehealth services are really likely to provide wider access for affirmative services for the LGBTQ plus community. And so, when we think about like creating an LGBTQ plus group, isolation, there might not be the people to do that, but 2, if folks are having to come into a physical office to do that, and there's a degree of disclosure of I'm going to this office, if it's a group of people. So there's a little more privacy just around being able to work with folks, maybe in the comfort of their own homes, to where they don't necessarily have to go into a group clinic or something like that, where if it's known what the purpose of the group is, then they're kind of outed by their association with it. So this kind of just provides another layer of protection for those clients in some situations. And then the other thing that telehealth is really unique for, let me bring this back, is being able to just kind of connect folks with different providers here. So this was a really neat resource I found, and they provide some services for folks in Idaho and Wyoming. I know most of you, I think, are in South or North Dakota, but we might have some clients here. And this is a website called QueerDoc. They do telehealth for LGBT youth for a wide array of services. Let me try and scroll down here. Yeah, so youth initial gender care visits, LGBTQ sexual health visits, gender marker change consults. So this is really a great resource, for folks who might have trans youth in particular, who are maybe looking for that gender affirming care or maybe some support in transitioning. This would be a great place to kind of go for some of those things.